Greetings, welcome back to CS133 Practical Programming with Python. We are on week 6, file manipulation. We are starting to get into the actual practical part of this. You gotta obviously learn how to code first, but now we're getting into what you can do with it, right? So one of the examples I thought would be a good one is file manipulation. I've used this quite a lot. In whatever field you're going into, you don't need to go into tech to use this. I've used it a lot to go through hundreds and thousands of files to create new users. Again, if you do go into tech, these little scripts allow you to automate a lot of information. And then again, we'll move into robots, programming logic controllers, and kind of wrap it up. But this is like the first little piece as we go into the practical part of the programming is writing scripts to kind of automate your life. And kind of our mini project for this is based off of an actual project where we would get a spreadsheet of all the new employees and then have it go into the system and check to add them and check to see if they're there, if they've been there, because new employees might have been old employees that came back, right? So the script would run through, create people, get rid of people that are no longer there, build their files, connections, make their email accounts all set up. So it would do all of that for us, which would take hours and hours of time. Every time you got to change something. So this is kind of the concept. I figure files is a good one. I've done other ones where the naming, and I think I mentioned this in earlier ones, where we got the string methods. The names of the files was kind of weird, so I was able to just write a script. It ran through and was able to actually, and I think in this case they were nzip files, so it unzipped all the files, which apparently can't just mass unzip files. So it unzipped all the files, renamed everything out of the zip file, and then moved into a separate folder, right? So it did all that, which in unzipping one thing doesn't take a lot long. Unzipping 1,000 of them, that takes a long time, right? A lot of process, renaming. So again, the script wrote in 5-10 minutes, but saved me hours worth of work. So let's get into this as we go to, because our objective is to introduce you to how to interact with files in Python. And then you're going to be able to demonstrate how to open and manipulate a file in Trinket, right? So you can change stuff around. So as we go through this, there's a link you can go to later to have more testing. When we look at the code, it's fairly simple. Basically, you write this command which reads the file. One thing you'll need to understand is when you're doing this on a computer, the file, you need to tell the computer where the file is. So if it's in the same folder, like this is the same folder as far as this trinket's concerned, then you can. If it's in a separate folder, right, you'd actually have to put, where the location of that file is and all that fun stuff. But this is the same. Also for reference, if you need to add more files, you just click the plus sign and you can add another file for purposes that you'll need to do later. So again, this is just a variable. It's F, stands for file. You can literally write file, but an F is kind of the standard a lot of people use. So you open the file, you store it in the variable, and then you can then read it. There's all these different pieces. So like .read reads it, right? So when I print, this is the contents of the file, and then you close the file, right? So that's the basis of how this works. As we go through, there's different things you can do, read, write, whatnot. But again, you open the file, you save it you set it to a variable, and then we can start using it, right? So the first thing is just to read it. This is just reading it. You can see that is the contents of the file. So what can we do now, right? Well, let's go ahead and open the file again. So let me make this large. We're gonna open the file, and then we're gonna loop through each line in the file, right? So it is kind of nice that if you do this, you can loop through each of the lines. So for X, and you could do this however you want. You can call this line, right? You just got to change everywhere that there's an X for for the line in the file. We should use X here. So you print X again. my data, this is 100. We are going to print that line. So there's a line. If it contains 100, right? So if 100 is in X, and this is this line right here, which is why it prints, this row has 100, and then it prints the last line, which does not have 100 in it, and then we close it. Now we mentioned stuff as well where you can actually, and this is, you're going to need to kind of understand this concept for later. We can do a split as well. I can, especially if you know with these columns, this is what's considered a comma separated value, right? So they separate the values with commas, so you can actually open up these files with Excel, right? And it'll put each of these in different cells. So what's kind of nice about this is we can, do our good old items did before, and then again x dot split, and we can split on that comma. And then in this case, instead of doing in X, we know that the number, so maybe this is employee number, right? This is the name, this is employee number. So if 100 is equal to, and then again, items 1, because that's the second one. And again, you're going to need to understand this concept when we do our little mini project down here. And also nested looping as we go through. But you're looping through this file, checking for this. So for example, again, right, I'm checking to see if this user is in our system already, right? Now again, as we go through this, what we'll have another text file. So we have current users, new users, check to see if the new users are in the current users, and this is kind of that concept right here. So if this, then, so again, a good example of, check this, so I run this, if 100 equals items 1, split on 0, I'm gonna print items 1. So here's a great example of testing stuff. So print items 1, and it might be a number, so let's run this real quick. So again, it is showing 100, so let's try this real quick, see if it actually thinks it's a number. Because if this is equal, so let's see, items 1 prints 100, items 1 is equal to 100. That's a fun one. But again, these are examples. I'll think about it later. Talk about it. But as you're going through, these are ways you can check. If this user is in there, if it creates it. How that's all working. As an example of ways to navigate. Now, you can also write to it. So again, here's a link that'll give you more examples of writing. But you can also write to the file. So again, if we had our current users, new users, we could say, all right, the current users don't have the new users, so let's add the new users to the current users, and then they're no longer new users, they're in the current users, right? So that'd be an example of writing. So one thing you'll see here is, notice it did not use R this time, right? R is read. So to write to it, you use the write command, and then you can close it, and then we're going to go ahead and now open it as read, and then go ahead, read the file, and close it. So again, this is, and actually if every time I run this, it's going to add that to this thing. So I can go ahead and delete all that and show you again. When I run this, it adds this, and then it prints the current new context. Now I could print the first one, empty, or not empty, just not having this, and then add it and then print it again. But the point is the same, right? You have A, there's other methods, there's a W as we're going through here. We'll look at that in a bit. But again, you just write to it. This is file dot write, allows you to write to it, and read allows you to read to it. So again, remember, when you actually open the file, you have access to all those files, so you can loop through them as well. That's what we did up here. All right, couple more things. We can create a file as well, right? So this stuff automatically runs, so I'm going to delete this, right? And then we'll run it again. So let me go ahead and full screen this. So basically, if you do this and the file name does not exist, and this is something important out, like if you are looking for a file and you do the wrong spot, like if I do demo slash or folder slash, and there's not this file there, it's going to create that file. So in this case, again, we're going to go ahead and open and create a new one, put some contents in it, close it, and then read it. Again, right now it doesn't exist, right? So if I Control X this and run this, again, it opened it up, but there's nothing. There was nothing in there, right? So anytime it's not there, it's going to create it. So let's run this though. Let's open it, add some file to it, run it, and then read it. And that's what we got here. Now there's file list content. Now there's file list content. There we go. That's how you create a file. Basically, creating is if it doesn't exist and you open it, it will create it. So that's probably the easiest thing to create a file is you just do what you normally do and it'll just create it. Which, again, if you put something else here and run it, now I have another file. All right, last thing I'm going to show you real quick is actually the recommended way to do it. I was just showing you how it works. So here is the old method I just taught you, is basically grab the file, do what you need to do, and then close it, right? Now, another way to do this is to run this while loop, and then you're going to open it as file, and as soon as the with so it's not a loop per se, it just executes the code. So let me clarify, not a while loop, it's a with statement. But you got to keep everything indented, and as soon as you stop indenting, right, then this is outside of that, and it closes itself, right? So that's kind of the concept of this. It closes itself. You're able to say with this, run the file. I can read the file, get the data and print, and you can see it accomplishes the exact same task. So you just don't need this. You open the whole entire thing in one line. So this is definitely a good way to do it. But I want to show you both ways just in case you needed to do it a different way. But this is a with files again, and who knows, there might be other code you need to do, and you don't always want to have a with statement. So again, that's why I showed you this example. But this is a much neater self-closing recommended method if it works for your system. Otherwise, again, you still can open it, do your things, do other type of information, and then just close it at the end, right? That works too if there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. But with is more efficient than the recommended method. And that's it, right? So that's really the biggest thing, is just, this one line of code gets you the file, and then once you have that file, it's essentially kind of like a list, but with other pieces, so you can read it, you can close it, but you can go through and actually analyze this as we're working, right? So that is what we're working with for files. We're going to, I'm just going to jump into this next lesson because there's not much to it. This is more research because you can't actually do this in Trinket. Although this would be the preferred method that I would do it. This is normally what I do. It's easier to work with. Is if the file is saved as a CSV, which again is essentially what this is. This is a CSV, so test.csv. And here's your with, but you have to import to do with, and this is why I can't do it in Trinket. It doesn't allow me to import CSV. But do notice this. It says it has a row header, and it does, right? The row header.
So you can get to them. So instead of being like, all right, instead of running that split, remember I had a split over here. So instead of running this split right here, the beauty of using the CSV, it already knows what it's supposed to be. So again, it doesn't need to be split. It's already separated. So we can just get this byte. So it's going to loop through everything, each of the items in each line, right? Each of the lines is going to loop through of them. The my data, and remember those are the row names. So you can, it's just easier. I mean, it's a little bit more typing could be, because you got to write out the row every single time instead of just simple variable and then I or whatnot. But this does make it a lot easier. So again, you can do your own research on this. You're not going to have to do CSV. But again, practical programming, CSV is a much better way to do this. So if you want to play around with that, there are good examples of being able to go through it. But that's it, right? The key is, even with CSV, you got to open the file, and then you can do what you need to do with the file, and then you close it. So some of this biggest thing as we're going through there is the logic as we go through this, right? How do we check if it's there? Once it's there, now we need to write. So you have all the pieces. You can come back to this. You can write it to it and figure out how to work. So that's all I have for this lesson. We will see you for the practice.